Hello again everyone and welcome back along to the channel in the final conference preview of Super Rugby 2017. It is Africa number 2 and we have 4 teams to have a look at, so let's get stuck into it. If you wanted to see what I think about the other 3 conferences, you can see those videos in the past. You can go back and have a look at the New Zealand Conference, Africa 1 and the Australians as well. If you want to see what I think those mugs will be doing in 2017, you can check those out. But today it is Africa 2. Of course, we have the Jaguares or the Jaguares. Then we have the Kings, the Lions, the losing finalists from 2016, and of course the Sharks coming in the 4th spot for 2017 preview. What we're going to be having a look at, of course, the key players in, the key players out, the key players for the team that I expect to perform at the best, and of course the weakness, because every team has a weakness unfortunately, and I'm going to try pick on it to the best of my ability. Now today let's kick this off with a look at the Argentinian franchise. It is the Jaguares team for 2017, and really, to be fair to you, there's not much happening here in the Argentinian camp at all. Only 3 players have been dropped, and they go by the names of Jacqueline Paz and Segundo Tucalet. And the biggest surprise of all, the other 2, yep, they're nobodies, they hardly played last year, but these guys, this guy here at the bottom, Lucas Gonzalez Ambrosino, has been released. Now this one shocked me because he is an Argentinian squad player. He's a decent player and he's a good player. I don't understand why they have released Ambrosino from the team. So that's who is left. And to be fair, there's not much that has come into the team either. The biggest name to come in is Benjamin McComey from BNA. Now he's the only real addition because the rest of the players that joined this Jaguares team are just some 7s players. Now, no offense here to 7 players whatsoever, but they have no reputation as star 15 additions. So they've come in for depth, obviously international duty during the season and playing for the whole box straight way through is going to be big. You know, these guys have a huge season ahead, so they need a massive squad, and they've pulled in some big numbers as well. But the 7s guys, they'll get some good experience here at Super Rugby level as well from this season. So not much has been added, not much has been lost. In summary, Ambrosino out, McComey in. That's about it for the Argentinians. What's going to be key though for this Jaguares team? Well, it's one word really, the pack. The pack. It's an international pack. It's a pack good enough to push around the All Blacks, the Springboks, Australia, England. It's a good enough pack to beat just about anyone, pack versus pack. And when you have all this experience, the Herreras, the Paz, the Chaparros, the Creevies, the Montoyas, that's just in the front row. Then the second row, the Alemanos, the Lavaninis, the Petties, the back row, the East of the Leguzamons, the Matera, the DCOs, and the McCombs and the Senatores as well. That is huge. You could just about put any of those guys in any international team. That's how good most of these guys are. They'll find a spot in the starting lineup or on the bench. The Argentinian pack is great. I love this Argentinian pack, and they've put them all into the Jaguares, which is just great because at Super Rugby level, these guys should dominate. What lets them down, of course, is what we'll talk about very soon. But other keys for them, apart from the pack, you look through the advancing abilities of the De La Fuentes, the Moronis, and the Orlandos as well, who had decent seasons last year. And of course my favourite player in this team, Santiago Cordero. I hope he has another ripper of Super Rugby season as well. But let's get to the bad stuff, the weaknesses. What is this team going to struggle with? And I think it's going to be the same as last year. Discipline. Discipline. 101 discipline. Don't get yellow cards. That is it. Don't get yellow cards. I know everyone gets yellow cards every season, every game. Teams always get a yellow card, but it just kills the Jaguares. And that is what destroyed their season last year. Yellow and red cards, ill discipline, poor discipline. That was their downfall. And on top of that, they need to play more of the full 80-minute games. They can't fall asleep after 50 or 60. They need to work on that massively. That's their weaknesses. Their team is good enough. We know their team is good enough. It is pretty much Argentina. Their team is there. It's just discipline, mental, top 2 inches. That's what they need to work on. Jaguares, hop to it. I expect big things from you in 2017. Okay, so we've looked at the Jaguares and a team that promises much, could do great things, and overall could be an exciting side in 2017. And then we move to the Kings, who don't really offer us much. The Kings. What do we say about the Kings? Okay, let's get started with the Kings. What have they added to their team? Well, they've added, let's be fair, they've added a pile of players. They've added, of note, Ross Geldenhuys, Chris Heiberg from the Force, Geldenhuys from the Highlanders, of course. They've added Schalk van der Merwe from Montpellier, and they've also added Louis Schroeder as well, the scrum half coming in and joining the team from the Stormers. So that's 4 good additions to the team, but I mean, if I'm going to go through every single change in the side here, it's going to take me a while. They have pretty much dropped every scrum half. They've pretty much dropped every fly half, every centre, almost every prop, 2 of their 3 hookers, pretty much every second rower, a couple of fullbacks, which is all they had. I mean, they've dropped just about the whole squad, and they've selected another whole new one. Now, to me, that bing problems straight away. I mean, Stephen Sykes, who was brilliant last year, a real leader. And if there was any positives to come out of the team, it was him. Sykes was brilliant. I thought he was easily the best player in the forward pack. In the back line, it was Jurgen Visser and Shane Gates, I thought, who were quite standouts for the Kings. But no, they're gone. Out the door. See ya. Don't hit the door on your ass on the way out, boys. You're gone. I just can't believe that they've completely wiped the floor with this whole squad, apart from, maybe 5 or 6 guys that have survived, and started again. A whole new team. I mean, we'll cover that more in the weaknesses here, but let's have a look at the keys, I guess. They got a little more experience in their front row. They got a little more experience in their backs, I guess, because they've picked up the likes of Schroeder. They've picked up Moretz from the Sharks as well. But really, they've lost a lot as well. They've lost a lot of continuity from last season. And let's not beat around the bush here. Let's go to the weakness of the Kings. And let's start off. I've talked about it already. It's a fact that they've thrown everyone out the window and they've picked a whole new team. It's going to take all year for this team to actually get that continuity back as a team. It's going to take them the first 5 weeks of the bloody tournament to know each other's names. This is just ludicrous that they expect this team to compete at Super Rugby level when they can't even keep the same players. I mean, it's just a whole bunch of players from the Currie Cup mostly, and it's not all the same Currie Cup team either. They're coming from all over the shop. They're facing these guys against them. They're picking up players that don't even have a club. They're unattached players, and they're bringing them to Super Rugby and expecting them to perform. It is insane. It is ludicrous. It is stupid. And I can just see it's going to be another crap year for the Kings. They can't perform off the back of this. They must have an insane training regime that have gone on for the last 3 months for these guys to even learn plays together. Are they going to go out there and just play a cut every single time they get a set piece? What are their line-out calls going to be? They need time. You need continuity. You need players who know players. These guys are just coming up to Currie Cup to Super Rugby level. The step up is daunting enough as it is without not knowing your team that well, with not knowing how these guys play at proper match level. These guys have just played Currie Cup. They have to deal with a shitload of stuff already before they worry about playing at that level. They have to worry about the basics of rugby. Is this guy going to catch my pass? Does he want me to pass it in front of him? Does he want to run on for depth? Is he going to cut to the left? That's so much stuff that only match experience gives you, that the squad should have kept the core of it together So that it was just, 6 guys coming in and going, oh, yep, I can pick this stuff up. I'm Bob. How you going? It's a lot different game when you're pulling out pretty much 90% of a whole new squad. The Kings are going to suck this year, and they're going to struggle. I've heard things about how financially and administratively they are going down the toilet like a big furry turd. It is not looking good here for the Kings whatsoever, and to be honest, I've spent enough time on this team whatsoever. I'm not waiting till the end. These guys are last. These guys are last. No question about it. Let's move on to another team. Please, let's go and have a look at the losing finalist. It is, of course, the Lions. Hopefully some more better news coming out of this camp. I know straight away there's a lot less out and a lot less in, which is a great start. Let's have a look at it. Big ins here for the Lions. One man, one name. Here's a positive. Quagga Smith. Now Quagga Smith. He is a favourite of mine because he won the Curry Cup on the Nathan Nichols Be a Pro in our first season. But enough of that. He's joined the team, but ultimately the core of the side has stayed the same. They've lost a few players that weren't really their first team starters, so a bit of mixing up there, but ultimately what you'd want is the core of the squad staying together, especially when they got to the final. And really, if they didn't take that weakened team to Argentina, they would have finished top. Final would have been in South Africa. Result probably would have been different. But enough reminiscing and looking back in hindsight about what last year could have been. Should have been the Lions winning the tournament is what it should have been, for God's sake. But anyway, what have they lost here? The big thing they have lost is Julian Redling-Hayes in their front row, injured, out for the season. Big loss straight away. Another, I think, biggest loss of this team is Warwick Tecklenburg, retired. That is massive. And that is where Quagga Smith comes in. Direct replacement, bang bang. Not very two-alike players. Quagga Smith very much a sevens player. Tecklenburg, wasn't he just a machine? He would just tackle and tackle to a standstill. Nicknamed himself Tecklenburg as well. He was just amazing. And a massive loss to that back row, which was just looking so strong with the likes of Jaco Creel and there, Ackerman, who was playing pretty well last year as well. Warren Whiteley at number 8. It looked good, that back row. And they've lost just a bit of themselves here with Tecklenburg making his way out there. And at fly half, they've lost Martinez Boshoff, who has made his way out. But of course, they still have pretty good cover there with Alton Yanchis leading the way in the number 10 jumpers. So we talked about them already. Key players, key positions. 9-10. I always say 9 and 10 is key because it is. Apart from your forward pack, 9-10 is where you win and lose a game. It's that control and direction of your back line. And when you've got Faf de Klerk, who is just a little nugget, isn't he? He'll tackle everything, and he's so sparky, and he breaks things open. He's great. Faf de Klerk, Alton Yanchis, expecting a big season from those guys again. And we already talked about it as well at the top. The likes of Jesse Creel and Warren Whiteley leading the way from the back. Expect quick ball and doing the job from the back row as well. That's got to be big for them. It's just a front row, maybe a question mark about that from the team. And of course, further out in the back line, another man, a fan favourite, of course, some may say, Rohan James van Rensburg. Key player, big player, up-and-coming superstar of South African rugby. But of course we have to look at the weaknesses of this team, and I think what's going to maybe get these guys unstuck a bit here is the pressure. Now, I know we've talked a lot about pressure over the last few episodes as well, which is what it all comes down to, but the Lions, they were crap. Okay, 5 years ago, whatever it was, they were rubbish, finishing bottom of the table. They were a bit like the Kings are now. They were the right off the easy win. If you got the Lions in your fixture list in South Africa, you're woohoo, because you'd get a win. But now, the last season was their surprise season. They went bang, and they hit it hard, and they went straight up, and they went straight to the top, and almost shocked the world and won the title. Now, the pressure is there to duplicate that, to replicate that, to do it again. That is where they may find themselves wanting a bit. They'll go into games now and they'll be like, oh, well, the Lions should win this game. It's the pressure, whereas last year it's like, nah, well, Lions will lose. And then, whoa, bang, underdog, coming up and taking the win. They may have lost that element of surprise now, and they have gained that pressure and expectation of performance. That is what could kick this team in the guts. I hope not. They have a lot of players now that are experienced. They've experienced international duty as well. And I expect them I'm giving them the pressure now too. I expect them to bounce out of it, but if anything's going to hit them, it's going to be that pressure of expectation, and I am firmly putting it on them as well for 2017. And of course, adding on to that, and we've seen it last year, which is why I'm going to throw it in here, the depth. We've seen that game where they went to Argentina, where they should have topped the table. I know, I'm really sticking that dagger into all you Lions fans out there, but that depth. If they have to call on that sort of depth again in 2017, I'm talking injury crisis, it's looking rough. It's looking rough, isn't it? So that could be a problem. They may want to not rely on, it's hard, because you want your best team out there, but you don't want to burn them out. That's what the Lions reckon they did. That's why they sent that B team to Argentina. They need to probably be a bit more clever. That could be what would say, but it's that thing of playing your best players, but you've also got to create depth, and it all falls on the coach, Johan Ackerman, to do the job. Decent coach. He led the team up there last year. He's got to climb that mountain again, but he's got to maybe be a bit more smart about what he can do. Okay, so finally, in our squad preview, we're down to our final team. Out of all these guys, all 18 sides, this is the last one in Africa too. It is the Sharks. Now the Sharks, they've put a promising little twist on their season this year. You see, promotion is very strong with the Sharks team. I think they're feeling quietly confident about what this team can do. So let's have a look at who they've pulled in to their team this year, and it is a fullback that I think they got their biggest coup, where they've picked up Clement Puccino from Toulouse. Now the former French international, he's a bit older now, I think he's 34 from memory, but of course he's got that experience, which is huge, but he's also retired, and he's come out of retirement to play in Super Rugby, so it's a big signing, but does he come at that level? Now, he's a great player in the past, to play for France internationally and cap yourself a few times as well. It's great, but does he pull that in? So it's an in, it's a key in, and it could be a very key in, but will he be at that Super Rugby level? They've also picked up Jacques Vermeulen from the Stormers, a young, up-and-coming talented player, and finally, a lot of youth from the Currie Cup as well. A lot of players coming up from the Sharks Currie Cup side, which is a great little progression system, because the Sharks build with their team, and like we talked about earlier, these South African sides, it's like after last season, they did all come together. I remember the South African coach and all the coach of the Super Rugby sides coming together and just discussing the future of South Africa after the meltdown year they had in 2016. I think this is a reflection. We talked about it a lot earlier with the first teams in Africa 1, about how they've focused a lot on bringing up that youth talent, and we see it more here with the top teams like the Sharks. They're putting a lot more faith in that Currie Cup build-up up into Super Rugby, that stepping stone. That's what they need to do. So as a result, there's not a huge amount of key additions into the Sharks team for the up-and-coming season. Also, they've got a change in coaches here as well, with Robert Dupree coming up from the Sharks Currie Cup team as well. So he'll be familiar with a lot of these guys and what they can offer, which is good, because you don't want these guys coming up as unknowns. You want someone who knows how to use them, which is great for the Sharks. They have lost some key players in the back line though, which could hurt them. It could really hurt them. Willie LaRue and both the Petersons, JP and Joe Peterson, out. That is going to hurt them quite considerably. They've also lost Paul Jordan, who was one of those guys who was a consistent leveler, a guy who's played at that Super Rugby high level for a long time. And also Dale Chadwick, another one, an experienced Sharks prop who was away to France, and also David McDouling away as well. So a couple of decent losses throughout the team, but I think they'll cover those in the front row and the second row quite nicely. But the loss of the likes of LaRue and both the Petersons could hurt this team, and it's going to be, like I said, that youth coming up. It's going to have to fill those roles of the superstars, especially Willie LaRue, although not playing the type of rugby that he is so good at. Kicking far too much was always painful to see in Willie LaRue, but good enough player that at that level is very much a valuable asset. So a lot's going to be proven here about what the Currie Cup can do for the Sharks Super Rugby side. The key to this team is going to be their pack. It is a very powerful and strong pack. You expect that from South Africa, but these guys, I think, are next level. They're up there and good and risen above that staple Super Rugby level that will actually be a threat to other teams to bring this power pack forward into the side. Other keys is going to be Pat Lambie. Now, on two ways. Firstly, that he's fit, and secondly, that he is in form. So if they can get both of those ticks in the boxes, Pat Lambie will be massive. It's great to see Garth April still there in the side as well. Had a nice little addition into Super Rugby last year, and he looked like a decent little player as well from the conveyor belt that is South African rugby. And it's what we talked about before, of course, Super Rugby getting the lift from the Currie Cup as well. That's where Garth April come from, and it just shows that those guys can come in and prove effective straight away for the team. Now, if anywhere we're going to pick a weakness on, it's where they've lost all that ability in the big names of the LaRue and the Petersons as well. In the centres, and really just out-and-out finishers. They don't have those guys that just do that job. You've got a couple, like some Involvo out there, and of course in Ndingani, Satoli as well. But that's three guys that is going to have a lot of that weight of the finisher on their shoulders. They need some more. Again, we talk about it. Currie Cup is where it comes from, and they're going to put a lot of faith in that coming true and working for them again. A lot of players coming. They've even picked up a player from the Kings, Jeremy Ward. I mean, that's a risk, isn't it, picking up someone from the Kings? But the Sharks, I feel they've got a positive vibe about them as well, and they've got key men in key positions. Fitness is key for them, and creating players who can do jobs from the Currie Cup. At the backs is going to be the biggest key for them. They need players to fill those voids left by the likes of the Petersons, Joe and JP, Paul Jordan and Willie LaRue. Porchino needs to be great. He needs to be at his best if he's going to fulfill the role that he's come into the team for. And as we talked about already, the coach, knowing those players, will prove a huge part of how they progress. So then it's the Sharks, a good-looking Sharks team, and like I said earlier, I'm feeling those positive vibes coming through them through social media, and just the promotion of their team is always positive heading into a Super Rugby season. So that's it. That is the 4 teams. Not very many, not too much to go over, as well as, like we said, South Africa really pushing their Currie Cup straight up into Super Rugby. Hopefully it pays dividends for them at Super Rugby level and internationally as well. So where do I think these guys are going to finish? Well, I am putting the pressure firmly on the Lions, and I am picking them to come out top of the conference. Now, again, it's what I talked about. What could kill them is the pressure, and I'm, like I said earlier, firmly putting it straight on their head. I expect them to perform, and I expect them to do well. I like their 9-10 to Clark and Yankees. I love watching those two guys play, and I expect them to do well. Firmly, though, right up their arse, I expect to see the Sharks. Now, the Sharks are a good team as well. Now, the thing for the Sharks is not the pressure, but it's the injuries. If they can keep guys fit and discover their youth and talent through the ranks, they could be a threat as well. But I think they'll come in second in this conference. Firmly right behind them too, I expect this to be quite tight, is the Jaguares. Now, I expect the Jaguars to be brilliant. Now, last year, they let themselves down, I think. I had pressure on them to do well, and I thought they would do quite well as well. But they let me down, they let everyone down, and I think their fans expected more as well. This year, I think the level has been lifted. They need to lift it even more. So they need to do what they did last year, expect more, and then expect more again. So it's going to be a double-edged sword here for the Jaguars. They've got the players, they've got the team. They just need to execute. And that's what was frustrating last year, because they kept putting out lineups which would rival what they would internationally, putting on the blue and white hoops, but they just don't perform, which is a real shame. I'm a big fan, like I said last episode, of this African one, of these new teams, the Sunwolves and the Jaguares. I just need them to perform. I expect them to perform. I want to see the Jaguares get second or first in this conference. I think they'll still get third, but I want them to really challenge the Sharks for that second spot. And finally, the Kings, fourth. That's all I've got to say. It's about the Kings, fourth. Fourth, last, long shot, no chance, won't get close at all. Last season, we seen them perform so well for the first half of games and then fall off, which, you know, was a bit frustrating, but I didn't mind because it showed promise that if they could learn to play a full 80-minute game, they could be a threat. But now they've just wiped the floor of everything. that they've done last year. I don't even know why they turned up last year, because they've just thrown it all out the window. Now they start again, unknown and rubbish. I've said enough about the Kings. Stop making me talk about them. That is it. That is it. Lions, Sharks, Jaguares, Kings. That is my division of Africa number 2. That came out completely the wrong way. That's what I think. Of course, my opinion is, of course, my own. You can leave yours in the comments below. As per always, let me know what you think, who you think is going to come where. Tell me what you think about the Kings. Have a good rant about them if you like as well. I've seen on Twitter there's been some pretty bad things going around about the Kings as well. So let me know what your thoughts are about them in the upcoming season. And as, of course, I've been saying the last couple of episodes, you're going to be running a tipping competition on one of the tipping websites. At this stage of recording this, I don't know where or where it will be, but by the time it goes live, I should have picked that up. You can check that out in the description. There should be a link and a group you can join where you can go head-to-head with me and hopefully not beat me, because I'd like to win. Please and thank you. Until next time, thank you for tuning in and watching. Hope you've enjoyed today's episode looking at Africa 2. That wraps up all of the South African conferences and the New Zealand and Australia, all of Super Rugby done and dusted. We hope it is a great season as well, but thank you all for joining me. Hope you've enjoyed these little previews, and until next time, thanks for watching and take care.